This is a love story.
Fleabag returns in the show's second season with a punch. We don't see this punch, given during an extended flashback sequence of the family's dinner, until later in the episode, and the first scene, which shows Fleabag bloody without context, has us wondering, what happened? How on earth will this be a love story? Soon after, of course, we witness the falling in love between Fleabag and the priest. But we also realize this love story extends beyond romantic love. Writer-actress Phoebe Waller-Bridge, addressing her creation of the second season she never expected to create, has stated, "I so wanted to see a story about love and connection and about not just romantic love, but about people actually reaching out to each other and catching each other. I feel like at this time there isn't much evidence of that happening in the real world." I'm going to focus here on one point of connection in particular, the relationship between Fleabag and the viewer. Tracking the evolution of Fleabag's infamous fourth wall breaking, I'm going to argue that this relationship constitutes its own love story. In Season 1, Fleabag gives a performance for the viewer, but in Season 2, Fleabag enters into a communicative relationship with the viewer, whereby I aim to show Fleabag and the viewer help heal each other, learning to move past the harmful behavior of a lingering postmodern televisual culture, to confront our ghosts, and to use the space of our loss to generate new connections with other people. What do I mean by postmodern televisual culture? Here we must reach out to David Foster Wallace for help. Foster Wallace, a fiction writer and essayist known especially for his magnum opus, Infinite Jest, observed what he called the stasis of modern televisual culture. In his essay, E Unibus Pluram, Television and U.S. Fiction, he contends that contemporary society has become lamentably infected by television's reliance on and promotion of irony and fear of ridicule. According to Foster Wallace, the most frightening prospect for the well-conditioned viewer becomes leaving oneself open to others' ridicule by betraying passé expressions of value, emotion, or vulnerability. Although Foster Wallace made these observations in the 1990s and about United States televisual culture in particular, the lamentable condition he identified nonetheless rings true today and not only in the United States. Fleabag uses various postmodern televisual tactics, including meta-televisuality. We can define meta-televisuality as the depiction of television within television, and as the state in which a televisual entity, like a TV show, demonstrates an explicit awareness of its televisual status.
Stop making a spectacle of yourself and clean that up.
According to Waller-Bridge, Fleabag breaks the fourth wall in Season 1 because she feels the guilt-induced need to confess her role in the death of her best friend, Boo. Yet throughout Season 1, and until the audience learns Fleabag's secret, we see this fourth wall breaking achieve a dual effect. On one hand, it allows Fleabag to convey to the audience what she allegedly and usually honestly feels about something or someone. On the other hand, however, it gives her mastery over her life's narrative, granting her control over whatever uncomfortable circumstance confronts her. In the show's very first scene, we see a black screen overlaid with the sound of a woman's panting, and then we see a shot of a door rendered with a shaky camera effect. The overall effect here is anxiety. It's as if we've stepped into a horror film, until of course Fleabag breaks the fourth wall. With speech often a full step ahead of what occurs, Fleabag narrates her encounter with her good-looking hookup. Her narration exposes the truth behind the lie of nonchalance she presents to him, yet at the same time, because the very act of narrating gives authority to a narrator, Fleabag's narration enables her paradoxically to put back on a front of nonchalant mastery. Even while exposing her vulnerabilities, Fleabag wears an armor of, and this is Foster Wallace's formulation, an armor of feigned unself-consciousness, showing that she is fit to stand people's gazes, all the more pressing for a woman in a sexist world. To be clear, Fleabag tends much more than most people to speak with honesty and spontaneity.
I have a horrible feeling that I'm a greedy, perverted, selfish, apathetic, cynical, depraved, morally bankrupt woman who can't even call herself a feminist.
Nonetheless, the show makes a point to convey how even she is affected by the omnipresent postmodern televisual condition that Foster Wallace identified. Early in Season 1, Fleabag uses irony and ridicule against the show's two main antagonists, Godmother and Martin. Though these characters are awful to Fleabag, each offers her a rare moment of empathy. In the pilot episode, when Godmother asks Fleabag how she is doing, Fleabag deflects by offering ironic quips about the show's infamous statue. Fleabag's response, while humorous, undermines Godmother's serious comments about her art. Together with Fleabag's theft of the statue, her response likely motivates Godmother to continue belittling her, or worse, throughout the series. A similar encounter with the insufferable Martin propels yet more insidious consequences. In Season 1, Episode 3, Martin begins to tell Fleabag how sorry he is for her loss, but Fleabag deflects and spurs a chain of insults. This exchange likely contributes to Martin's choice to kiss her and later to lie about the kiss, leading to a more than year-long rift between Fleabag and her sister. With Martin as the poster boy for a harmfully derisive attitude, the first season shows how this attitude, worn for the avoidance of pain and the preservation of self, causes more pain to oneself and others. Fleabag's own performative front collapses when the viewer learns her secret. For Season 1's final few minutes, Fleabag, overcome with shame, can no longer look at the camera. She roams the streets utterly alienated from those she loves, and the next morning she nearly kills herself in the same manner as Boo. Of all people, the bank manager appears, effectively preventing her suicide and returning with her to her cafe for guinea pigs, where he stays with her in her grief and allows her to redo her lone interview. At its close, Season 1, having exposed the pitfalls of a postmodern televisual culture, paves a path for, but does not quite accomplish, reparative connection. Such healing really occurs when, contrary to original production intentions, a second season emerged. This emergence had 3 inspirations. The first was positive viewer response. Popular demand surely played a factor in Fleabag's return. So many fans proclaimed they wanted a new season so that Fleabag might find a better place for herself. The second inspiration was Waller-Bridge's realization that Fleabag still needed to learn how to love. The third inspiration was religion. Waller-Bridge says she developed this theme when writing religious jokes for another venue, and that she did so at the recognition that both Fleabag and the Catholic Church have a lot of guilt. With these 3 inspirations, and after figuring out a new way to break the fourth wall, Waller-Bridge began work on the new season. The second season's new use of breaking the fourth wall, according to Waller-Bridge, hinges upon 2 interrelated premises. The first is that somebody else, the priest, can see her do so. In a similar way, Fleabag can see the mysterious foxes that follow him. Foxes that, given their association with mischief and their emergence when the pair addresses priestly celibacy, likely represent the priest's doubts about his own vocation. In seeing each other's quirks, the pair sees each other's vulnerabilities and need for intimacy and understanding. The second premise of Waller-Bridge's new idea for the fourth wall breaking is that the camera, and by extension the viewer, knows Fleabag's secrets. Knowing her secrets, the viewer nonetheless remains with Fleabag, now looking at her as a friend. The season's 4th episode in fact draws a parallel between the viewer and Boo. During the scene in the cafe, when the priest asks Fleabag questions about her past, Fleabag, hesitating to confess the truth, looks at the camera. Then we see either a memory or an imagining of Boo looking at the camera, advising Fleabag against a confession. In this look-back dynamic, Fleabag and Boo seem to see each other from opposite sides of the camera, with Boo occupying the viewer's side. I'm not suggesting that the viewer is Boo, after all, the viewer is us. But the alignment of Boo with the viewer suggests the viewer's position as a ghostly resurgence of her. Indeed, the viewer haunts Fleabag. After Fleabag leaves the cafe, she tries to escape the camera, but the camera follows, and snippets of difficult memories return. When she enters her apartment, she finds the camera already inside. Finally, Fleabag succumbs to its persistent but friendly gaze. It is this friendly gaze, the gaze of us, the viewer, that compels Fleabag to confront her guilt and loss, letting memories resurface and heal her. These memories surround the funeral of Fleabag's mother, who, according to Fleabag's dad, knew fun and kindness by instinct.
Her instincts were, she just knew her to be fun, her to be kind. She just knew.
This spirit shines especially in Fleabag, who looks lovely according to everyone on the day of the funeral. The spirit also shines through Fleabag's confession that she does not know what to do with her love for her now deceased mother, and Boo's subsequent response.
I'll take it. No, I'm serious. It sounds lovely. I'll have it. You have to give it to me. It's got to go somewhere.
We then return to the present, with Fleabag kneeling in the church that housed her mother's funeral, and where the priest now serves. And we return with the suggestion that this great love, lest it remain stagnant, will branch out to others and revitalize. The show manages the tension between clinging to love and spreading love through a brilliant reworking of the biblical noli me tangere, or do not cling to me, which Jesus speaks toward the end of John's Gospel. In this moment, which occurs after Jesus' resurrection but before he ascends to God the Father, Jesus instructs Mary Magdalene, his devoted friend, not to continue holding on to him, but rather to run to the other disciples to share the good news. In Season 2, Episode 2, Fleabag sees painted depictions of this biblical moment. One painting hangs in the church's main body and the other hangs in the priest's adjacent office, connecting the biblical moment to Fleabag and the priest's struggle with touch.
Jesus.
The show also, however, connects the biblical passage to the many ways, besides romantic physicality, by which we attempt to reach out, touch, and cling to each other. Throughout the series, we see Fleabag cling, or attempt to cling, to her family, friends, ghosts, and the viewer, precisely because, as her dad says, her great love makes it so hard for her to let go. In the season and series finale, the relationship flips when others attempt to cling to Fleabag. When Fleabag discovers her cold-footed dad in the attic, he compares her again to her mother.
You're not the way you are because of me.
I know.
You're the way you are because of her. And it's those bits that you need to cling to.
He actually takes his own advice, clinging to Fleabag, who reminds him of her mother, making her walk him down the aisle. He can hardly let go when they reach the altar, though he does, after all, get married. Such letting go, as we will see in the show's final scene, bears both pain and potential. In the final scene, and at the priest's initiation, Fleabag and the priest separate despite their confessed love for one another. In a moment of mutual noli me tangere, they reconcile not to cling to one another. The priest, they quip, chooses God, yet after he walks away, Fleabag directs a fox to follow him, suggesting that his struggle will continue, a struggle that perhaps reflects needed reform within the Catholic Church. While the fox follows the priest, however, Fleabag's equivalence to the fox, namely the camera, does not follow her. She bids it and us goodbye. Where does this departure leave her? Where does it leave us? Fleabag's mother bears the key. After the priest leaves, Fleabag pulls out the show's infamous statue, which Fleabag has stolen yet again from Godmother, and which we now know is based on Fleabag's mother. She rests her head on the statue's neck, configuring herself as an embodiment of her mother. Then she walks away, and as she does so, she gazes at its absent face, suggesting a recognition of this absence, an absence that she herself enters into, inevitably, at the show's end. If we consider again the noli me tangere, recalling that Jesus breaks away from his friend in order to ascend to God the Father, we can read the show's final moment of Fleabag breaking away from her friend, the viewer, in order to unite with her mother, or perhaps with Waller-Bridge, the artist-creator, in a moment of wounded triumph. Fleabag, whom we watched descend into a psychological hell in the first season, has returned in the second season to learn how to love, and then, having inspired others to love, literally ascends out of the show. She also ascends out of the viewer's life. We are left at the end unable to cling to her, but though Fleabag leaves us, she does not leave us without a gift. This is a gift about, and a gift that emerges from, the space of our loss. From the seemingly empty space of this loss emerges the wisdom that memories and ghosts fill this space, and that, if one dares to confront these ghosts rather than avoiding them or hiding behind masks of irony and derision, one might discover that such ghosts can guide one to forge a better life. In the loving and mischievous spirit of her mother, Fleabag has inspired the other characters to be more honest, to admit and act upon their love. We the viewers have encouraged Fleabag to confront her ghosts, who no longer haunt but heal her. We now receive healing in return. If we think yet again of the noli me tangere, we see ourselves not only as Fleabag's friend, but also as her disciple. I don't use this term in a lofty religious sense, but in an intimate human sense. Waller-Bridge crafted the second season because she thought we needed a story about people reaching out and catching each other. The end of Fleabag compels us, the viewer, to do precisely that. In our post-show emptiness and in the space of the loss of our friend, we are at last called to remember this friend. Missing our friend and knowing we probably won't get her back for a third season, we must figure out something else to do with our love. Remembering the advice from Boo that Fleabag herself remembers, we realize
It's gotta go somewhere.